Nightmare.
Welcome to Porch Play Chat, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more affectionately titled IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association. As part of our efforts to promote play, we started Porch Play Chats, which are conversations with folks who are just as passionate about play as we are. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm the president of IPA USA, and with me on the porch is Lisa Murphy. Hey, Lisa, my co-facilitator. Good morning.
Good morning. It's raining on my real porch. So I actually, even though I set it up when I got home at 3 a.m, I set everything up to be ready to be out there. And
it's also raining on my.
Yeah, I'm not going to be out there right now.
What you're seeing is fake. And joining us on the porch today is Angie Nastovska. Angie moved to California in 2007, and she is currently a member of the iLEAD Maker Schools Network, and as the team director of Humanities, Innovation, and Academic Rigor, which is not a buzzword. It might be a buzzword that's going to set you off, but don't worry. Angie is so passionate about play, but you know, play is academic rigor. So Angie's been working passionately to establish a national and global presence as a change agent. And I will put their Facebook pages and their Playmakers Institute website on the YouTube sort of little blurb so that you can access
the
it.
Show notes, Deb, the show notes.
The show notes. Got it. Thank you. That's a good term. I didn't know that. So today, Angie's going to talk to us about early childhood education risk-taking and its impact on the success in future education and adult life. Angie, it is so great to have you back. We're so excited.
I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, what's going on with this? This was a great title.
Yes, so I forgot what I chose, which is so interesting, and I reach out to you, Deb, to ask you. But the reason why I actually chose the topic is coming out post-COVID. I'm going to assume the role both as an educator and as a parent. We have a lot of parents and a lot of kids that either were kept in bubbles or were bubble protected. Let's put it in that way. So I thought it would be very interesting to revive the topic of taking risks and what that involves, but most of all, start backwards. What are the long-term benefits of risky play? And then the biggest factor in it, how can we reculturalize our adult brain to go back to what we know is and was productive and useful? But let's start with the fact that, and probably most adults hear this, and with the reflective question of what are the most vivid childhood memories that you have, right? And I bet, like Lisa started laughing, I bet you teleport yourself climbing up a tree, being covered in mud, jumping in those mud puddles, pulling something, thinking you're going to grab it, but a bucket falls on your head, or trying to catch that branch and you swing like me and you fall on your back and you're like, whoa, that was high. So I think remembering those things with that kind of giggle, it's the actual positive benefit of risk taking, because as adults, we have grown to be those healthy adults, which that risk taking has turned into positive memory building, into resilience, into willingness to try, to survive and thrive and keep the smile on your face and accept failure and be willing to fail so that you can learn, and so on and so on. So few researchers that are super beneficial from graduate schools like MIT and Harvard and Stanford keep sending these messages almost like a call to action, especially for elementary schools. And, you know, most often elementary principals and administrations and superintendents who have elementary schools, they don't take it seriously because they don't take the message seriously. Why would graduate schools or universities send us a message? But it's actually early childhood education that impacts the most the results of what kind of adults we send to colleges and universities. So the research goes that when kids tend to drop out, or they begin failing classes, or they begin stressed and depressed, and they try suicide, when they interview them after, what they realize is the majority of the factors stem from their early childhood education days or elementary school, where they were bullied, they were kept separate apart, they were in a very strict, rigid environment where, and it goes all the way back to risk taking again. They weren't allowed to take risks. The risk was super prescribed. It's like, yeah, you need to step here, and step there, and then you finish the game. It's almost like very prescribed game playing that they would veil under the risk taking factor. So long story short, the majority of the kids that do fall in the category of dropouts and leaving school, not being able to succeed, and life is hard and things like that, leads to they weren't allowed to take risks, or the risk-taking aspect of their life was very minimal. So
I'm gonna interrupt because that is a direct correlation with the age of the people who are responding to those surveys or those questionnaires. The reason I giggled is because I'm 53. And so I have those play memories of being outside with my mom dealing with the other 4 kids and the family childcare kids. So I'm outside playing with the neighborhood kids, and I have that actual memory. And that's what I wrote down, is that I've been calling it the pipeline, and I don't know if we've talked about that with you on the porch before, but I call it the pipeline problem. And it's not a judgy thing. It's an observation that the kids coming up through the pipeline, who are now our youngest members of our profession, didn't get not even risky play. Like that's a given that they didn't get risky play. They didn't even get outside play.
Right.
So it makes perfect sense to me, and I'm thinking about Peter Gray's research. That's the stuff that I can call up pretty quickly in my brain. It makes perfect sense that there's a correlation with the increase of mental illness, the increase of suicide, with the lack of outdoor / risky play. And I think that is maybe a piece of the conversation that we don't talk about a lot, is that you're not going to give back what you didn't get unless somewhere along the way you said, that should be different.
Yeah. And, I was just thinking back to, the swings, swing, right? When you.
Dude, they don't have to have swings now.
No, when you used to leap off the swings or hang upside down on the monkey bars.
And it was a rite of passage that you got to that certain height and you're like, I'm going.
Yeah. And you would, it was, I had no fear of doing it because I was confident in my ability not to, to leap high enough and not to hurt myself and die. Right.
But even if you did, I mean, come on, do you not remember a kid that came to the playground with that badge of honor with the cast, right?
What happened? Oh, I fell out of a tree. Oh, was it fun?
Which tree?
Which tree was it? I'm gonna go. I think then back to, I have always been a risk taker, always. If I'm the rule breaker, I'm the risk taker. Oh, I know, not me. And I always push the boundaries. And I really think it's because of, my horse, we would gallop through orchards, and he was a circus horse. And I grew up in South Texas where we had groves of citrus trees, but he had been trained with, he was really skittish. You looked at him wrong and he shied. And so many times, I was 8 or 9 or 10. Many times I would come home with branches of citrus tree leaves and branches in my head because he had shied and I had been thrown into a citrus tree. He was
so to some degree, do you think the lack of parental supervision?
Yes, I didn't know where I was. We lived in the country.
And that is the complete opposite of what. And I'm being very general right now, right? I'm making very overarching generalizations. But for the most part, when was the last time you saw a gang of kids?
Right. on their own.
like just wandering around. And when you do see that kid who's like riding his bike to the grocery store, do you find that there's a little bit of you right now going like,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Because we're so overly cautious, but I really think,
we're
Angie,
hovering.
we are, and
hovering.
wrapping them in bubble wrap.
And it's interesting, a professor at British Columbia, Mariana Busani, I follow her research too. She just compiles research around risky play. And it's more so of the message for adults, not just parents, but educators too. Do not let your fears get in the way. And look at her interesting statistics. It says, statistics shows that the likelihood of a child getting kidnapped
Oh yeah,
is
please.
1 in 14 million, similar to the odds of winning lottery. And also a recent estimate shows that children would need to spend about 3 hours per day playing every single day for 10 years before they were likely to get into an injury that has permanent and treatment and requires everything that
So
parents
I'm going to
do.
especially ask you to get a copy of that article if possible, so we can
Yes.
put that in the show notes, because I think this, what I have discovered in the last, like since COVID, going back out on the road and doing workshops, I think the confidence piece is what is potentially missing from our frontline early childhood people. They don't have that data. And so, you know, we, and I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. However, if all you got is that kids learn through play and that's it, like it's true, but you need a little bit more. And I think sometimes the confidence by knowing that you have your hand on 5 articles that were written in, you know, the last 10 years makes us a little bit more comfortable and confident in going about doing what we know we need to be doing in the classroom. And your comment specifically, Angie, reminded me, that's why I turned around. You can't see my bookshelf behind me because the Northern Lights are here, but I was looking to see if I had Free Range Kids right here behind me by Lenore Skenazy, because she was like the poster child for that way back in, what was it, the early 2000s, I think.
Yeah, right.
Of just what you let them do stuff. And did you know that kids typically aren't kidnapped by random strangers at the park? They're kidnapped by their aunt and their uncle and the stepdad and people that they actually know.
And her child was in New York City.
Yes, and he was 9. And she let him ride the subway after many practice times riding the subway. And the piece of that story that always just really ticked me off was that when all the morning talk shows brought her on, and then of course, unbeknownst to her, she's being literally thrown under the bus and was called the worst mom in America. And that's when I was like, I need to know this woman. So we chatted a few times, and I love that right now she's collaborating with Peter Gray, and they're talking about the fear piece specifically that you just mentioned, Angie, and they're doing a lot of parent workshops to say, if you're parenting from a place of fear, like let's get in there and unpack that a little bit.
Exactly.
And figure out where it came from and what the root is and why it's harming child development.
And is it valid? Like that's what I like to gently I don't know what the word would be. That's what I like to push people. Like, how do you know? Where did you get that information? Where did you get that data? And is that actually true, or is that something that somebody told you? Is there actually any validity to your fear? And can we start dismantling that fear from a place of research? Like, that's not actually true. The media has convinced you that your kid is going to get taken if you turn your eye for a second at the park, and the truth is that that's not a valid.
Not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. It doesn't mean that your worry is any less,
right?
Exactly.
But it's probably
not going to happen.
Get out of the way, though.
It does, exactly. And I think the other piece is that they're so focused on getting these kids ready, right? That
everything's prescribed,
that they don't really think that there's any time to put in opportunities for
play,
outside recess that is more than play on this piece of playground equipment.
No, because the Uber's coming to pick us up to bring us to, I don't know. I was trying to make something up, but I don't accidentally want to say something that's real, like a name of something.
So scary.
You're right. I don't want anybody to get mad at me, but you don't need 49 after school extracurricular programs.
No, you don't.
Right. And not only that, but when we think about that, when I constantly, as a mom, before you're a mom, you don't really think about comparisons. But when you're a mom, you actually go through your self-realization questions or self-talk, like, should my kid be in something? But then I tell myself how the faces of the children, when you actually force them to grab a pen or pencil in a right way and practice penmanship, but they haven't played with Legos. They haven't been breaking little twigs and playing with little rocks and pebbles or throwing rocks, like what people, and as you said, Lisa, that's what I love. I don't say that everyone should be expert in early childhood education, but when you are about to do something, a decision for your child or for the kids in your classroom, please look it up. I mean, just Google it up. Is it healthy for a child? Is it part of the child developmental milestones to force them to sit after school, after being in school for 6-7 hours, and let alone that's alone, a long time, another 1 or 2 hours for that academic, rigorous extracurricular program of repeating problems over and over again. I mean, anyways, long story short, if we do allow children to take, even if it's calculated risks, let's not be super out there, we are increasing, first of all, and the most important, self-confidence and self-autonomy, right? Resilience, and then executive functioning abilities, which are detrimental to everything that we do in life. And of course, the risk management skills. And there is actually the newest trends in research about risk-taking past COVID, because our kids today spend, and this is ridiculous, more than 10 times less time outside than when we and our parents were kids.
Because we have to catch them up.
Right? That is scary enough. But then the risk-taking factor, we almost eliminated, but then society has become so independent, so choice-oriented, so risk-taking oriented, anything from figuring out a loan, buying a car, making a choice for a job, going for an interview. It's like you want them to perform well on all these in life, yet we're ripping them off completely from
being able to do that.
Exactly. So if we're thinking about anything, let's just focus on how the risk-taking factor translates into later lives when we want our kids to do that independently, and they can. And let's look statistically, let's think about also how many kids nowadays, and I'm saying kids, like young adults, are very codependent or still fully dependent on their parents, versus back in the days when it was like 16, 17, peace out. I got a car, I can drive, I can work, and this and that. No, now, mom, can you help me find the job? Mom, can you help me find a college? Dad, can you please borrow me this or borrow me that? So it's like, and almost the risk-taking factor translates into how badly do young adults nowadays calculate what does it take to take that loan or to borrow it. It's like they don't even think about what it means to return it or how am I going to return it. And that is where we see them get in trouble, and they continue to fail, and they don't know how to pull themselves out of it because they haven't had the opportunity to feel healthy.
Well, it's just even, I teach college students. One of the things that is just fascinating to me is when I show a video with infants that are crawling, and they're crawling up the upside down rocking boat, right?
Yeah.
And these students are flipping out. Oh my God, where's the teacher? She should keep, why? And I keep asking the question, why? Why? Well, it's dangerous. They're going to hurt themselves.
What do you mean by dangerous?
Yeah. And they're going to fall this far. They're pretty chubby. They're going to be fine.
The belly's going to hit the floor before the face. It's going to be just fine.
It'll be fine. And they're like, oh no, oh no. And I'm like, let's just watch and see what happens. And they are just.
Come on, Deb, weren't you the teacher that told me? Okay, so for the folks watching who maybe don't know some of the history, Deb was actually one of my professors in my master's program. Weren't you the teacher that told us the story about the so the director of the on-campus childcare center was also an early childhood instructor. She's in her office one day, she gets a phone call. On the other side of the phone, she hears, hey, I think my son left his jacket at school. Well, don't worry, she says, there's a big old lost and found box as soon as you come in the childcare. What do you mean the childcare? What are you talking about? I'm like, it went on for minutes. And then she said, how old is your child? Oh, my child is in your child development 101 class.
Oh, my Lord, have mercy. Yeah. And you're like, why are you calling for your son?
Wow.
See, and that reminds me of my favorite Deb story. I don't have a button for that. You can figure it out. You are a grown man.
Yes.
I know you can figure out how to make the Taco Bell taco salad, not in a shell.
Oh my God, the 15-year-old with the Taco Bell syndrome. And it's not just Taco Bell, just for those of you out there. It's not just Taco Bell.
But it's thinking out of the box. And you're not going to be willing to think, I mean, and we laugh about it. And at the same time, to your point, Angie, it's 100% true. If you're not getting those skills when you're younger, if you do not have developmentally appropriate risk-taking opportunities when you're little, one of two things happens. You're either going to grow up looking for those opportunities, which isn't really happening as much as it used to. What's happening more now is that risk aversion. They're scared to death to do anything, and they have mental breakdowns. Right, when the smallest little thing goes the wrong way, that emotional, that resilience is just not there. And then you keep going, and they say skills for the 21st century, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's not going to happen. And here's why it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because you're not letting kids play, because the only place where children actually are going to practice and learn and accumulate the skills for the 21st centuries is when they're at play.
Exactly.
And I don't know how many more times we need to say this, Deb.
Well,
I think a lot compared to
right. It's never enough.
That's what is. That it's never.
But the sad part is that it should be.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's nothing wrong with talking shop and having, professional conversations. At some point, though, we need to be able to stop defending and proving what's already been proven. And I might be going on a limb here, but it's my understanding that our profession is one of the only ones that continues to have to prove what we already have hard, solid data and research. It's already been proven. Why don't you believe us?
Yes.
Well, and it's because
we're women.
People who are making, women, but people who are making the decisions that are creating this mess that we're in are people who may not have played or have forgotten Bev Boz's childhood amnesia.
Right, childhood amnesia.
Or who have totally forgotten anything they ever learned about child development, if they ever had any knowledge of it in the beginning. And so, it goes back to a previous administration with No Child Left Behind, when they kept saying to the Giselle Institute, you need to redo those developmental milestones because we're much more advanced. And they did, and we're not. Development is development is development. And so all you have to do is say, show me where it says that in a developmental milestone, children should know all the letters of the alphabet, upper and lowercase.
It doesn't.
And have sight words memorized. Oh, it is. But the people who are setting the outcomes also know nothing about child.
And unfortunately, a lot of the people in our profession because the confidence and the knowledge of the data and the research isn't there, somebody who looks important comes in with a clipboard and a suit on and says no, and they say okay. And
Okay, yes.
that I try and fight, not fight. I speak to that when I'm at the workshop, is that,
Mhm.
I'm not telling you anything that's one, wrong, or two, inappropriate.
Right.
I am reminding you though, that the confidence piece is, I think, a variable that we don't often speak to. Like the reason that I don't care who walks in the classroom when I'm in the classroom, because I can translate any of the play that you see into language that you're going to resonate with.
Mhm.
Yes.
And I'm going to expect that you own whatever your issue might be with what's here. And
Mhm.
I think we age into that level of comfort because we have experience and because we have our hands on more knowledge and data. And, at the risk of saying or sounding like, I'm saying everybody needs to read an article a week, that's 100% exactly what I'm saying. If you are not informed, you are going to be led by people who aren't informed because they sound confident.
Mhm. Yeah. And they're the ones who are writing your paycheck. And so we're
But that's a
afraid
whole
to-
other issue, right? They
Yeah.
sign my check, so I'll just do whatever they want. And I'm like, at
Exactly.
some point you're going to wake up in the middle of the night and realize that you've sold your soul to the devil.
Yeah. And
Okay,
well, and the
let's twist
harm-
it to the positive a little bit. Just one
Sorry, Angie.
message.
Yeah,
Just
because
one
we have to
message
finish up. Lindsay's in the waiting room. But
Right. Just one message to all educators there. First is you have to play too. If educators are listening,
Mhm.
you have to play too. And here's how. This is super
Mhm.
simple exercise. I had a conversation with someone that a school that I adore in San Diego, High Tech High, true project-based learning school. And she's from the National Equity and Justice team. And as soon as we started the meeting, she's like, Angie, I always love to start our meeting with one simple question. What was the latest thing that brought you authentic joy? And it really got me thinking. But then the first thing that popped in my mind is because it was rainy season. It was the moment when I mud played with my kids. But the moment when I went from that, oh my God, we're going to get messy, to who cares? We're 100% washable. That was the true moment of joy. So I'm not saying that I'm ideal in being messy and being risky at home and in my life. But what I'm saying is, if you are on the completely opposite spectrum where you pose boundaries on everything and everything has to be structured, just try. And the same researcher that I just mentioned, she has something called the 17 seconds. When you think you need to intervene with a kid, take pause.
Right.
17 seconds. It's like a golden rule. If you think they're climbing too high, or if you think that they're on the verge of falling down, or if you think they need a hand, just count to 17 and then go in. Just as simple as that. So two things that we'll post links for is one that mentioned Bev Boss. I mean, the ultimate guide is if you go and visit any of the schools. The first time that I went visit is one of the people that I had with me bent down to talk to a kid, and they were like, what are you doing? Get out of the way. And the person that was with me was like, what did I do wrong? They will call you when they need you. That was the answer. And it's like, yes, they're so autonomous, so independent, and kids will call you if they need you. Do not interrupt that play. And then the second is ANGI play. I know it's super out there and it's super risky. I wish my child can go to a preschool like that. But maybe if you watch some of the videos that happen at ANGI schools, might make you want to feel a little bit better about taking smaller risks, not that scale risks. And we'll post a link to the research that I talked about and these two initiatives too, just for inspiration. But 17 seconds rule.
I like the 17 seconds rule. So if you don't get anything from this other than Lisa and I ranting, then please remember the 17-second rule. You don't need to interfere.
Exactly.
Wait, 17. They're very capable. Remember, all children are capable and competent unless we choose not to let them be that way. So, okay. So Angie, don't go anywhere. I'm going to close this up. So to learn more about Porch Play Chats, or please visit our website at IPAUSA.org. Up in that top right-hand corner, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can be a friend on Facebook, and you can do whatever you do to get on our list for Instagram, because I don't know that. And then every Monday, magically, I know Lisa has to keep me up to date on all this stuff. Every Monday, magically, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. So until next time, keep on playing.
Nice to see you. Thanks for being here.